So what that means is almost a return to the fundamentals. I mean, there's still, since the publication of the first piece of content marketing, approximately, golly, 110 years ago. I mean, essentially a catalog, like the J. Peterman catalog of its day. Not a lot has changed about humans. That's the thing that we need to understand. People are always searching for the ultimate edge or the newest technique, but humans don't evolve anywhere near that fast. So, for all intents and purposes, the buyer of 1922 is still essentially the buyer of 2022.
Are you looking for ways to shorten your marketing learning curve and help your organization survive and thrive? Welcome to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast, a show for purpose-focused leaders who want to use marketing techniques to fuel their organization's growth. If you're a returning listener and you haven't subscribed already, we'd love to have you. Also, please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Now here's your host, author and marketing specialist, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. My guest today is Aaron Wrixon, the best copywriter in the world and a dear friend. He and I have known each other for a number of years, and I just love getting the opportunity to hang out with Aaron and chat with him, particularly when we can dive into the idea of content marketing and copywriting and how that endeavor can really take your organization to the next level. One of the things we talked about was this shift that nonprofits need to make, which is a challenge in the nonprofit space. But this shift from the position of making the nonprofit the hero to making the donor the hero in their own story, and really writing copy that feels one-to-one, that feels like you're speaking to a single person, and that single person is going to feel all the feels when they donate to your nonprofit. Aaron is just an amazing person. He's one of my favorite people. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. Here we go. Aaron, how are you today?
I am good, my man. Any time with you is a good time.
Agreed. I am really excited to actually record one of our conversations. Normally we just shoot the breeze for a couple hours at a time and talk about everything from Nic Cage movies to how to pronounce Guelph. And so it's fun to maybe share this one with the greater audience out there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I always enjoy talking to you. I enjoy hanging with you better, but
Oh, absolutely.
Situations being what they are, you stay there and I'll stay here in Canada.
Apparently, that's the new thing that we all get to experience, is just never seeing anyone that we love ever again. But there you go.
Well, speaking of, as we record this, I'm shocked. You and I did 10 minutes of preamble and then turn on the record. You have yet to wish me condolences on the loss of my queen.
That's true. That's true.
This is fresh and new for me as we're recording. Obviously, this is going to come out sometime in 2034. But while we're recording it, my queen has just died.
That is true. And I saw a news article that they had to postpone some citizenship stuff in Canada because they didn't know to whom the people needed to pledge their allegiance in the interim between the Queen's departure and King Charles III.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal here. It's a big deal for us in Canada. She was here more often than any other country outside of the United Kingdom. She was on our money, so we're going to get some new money. I'm kind of a closet monarchist, so I've been watching documentaries and reading books, and I like the Crown on Netflix. But chiefly, this is why I'm most excited. Not that I would celebrate anybody dying, but they've just announced that we get a national holiday to commemorate her death. So
Like a
That's
national
exciting.
holiday moving forward, or just one?
Well, that's the jury's still out there. It will be a national day of mourning. I strongly doubt they'll be like, "Hey, it's happy day the Queen died."
Well, or, if this was a yearly event, or if
Yeah,
it
no,
was just the
I
one time
the
shot.
shirker in me says we can only hope it's a yearly event, but I doubt that it will be.
Okay. Well, it's as if people have not picked up on this fact already, Aaron hails from the glorious town of Guelph, Canada,
Hmm.
or Canada,
Canada, America's hat.
Canada, America's
Yeah.
hat. And we go back quite a ways. Met during our time in You
Hmm.
Gurus together.
Long
You
time ago.
were an instructory type person, and I was a what would we call that, class person,
Yeah, I was
I guess,
known
in terms
for
of going
getting
through
paid too
the
little to talk
things.
too long, and you and I met then. I think the first time we met, you took me to this cool speakeasy in Denver. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that was fun. We went to that place.
Or maybe we met the year before. I mean, it was around about that time that you and I started actually making plans to connect, whether or not you were at the conference or not, the annual conference that I would come to in Denver. And
Yeah.
we've been to that speakeasy. We've been to the good old hockey game down there at the Pepsi Center in Denver.
Yeah, we had too much tequila one night at a little place there called Pete's
Oh yeah,
in
yeah,
Denver.
that was good.
Illegal Pete's, actually.
They pour large
And
drinks there.
yeah, they did. I bet they still do.
Yeah.
We should go explore
Yes,
that again at some
yes,
point.
please. And now, if I'd had my way, again, I say I'm stuck up here in Canada. I had hoped to. In Fantasyland, I thought I was going to fly down to Denver and drag you off to the Afghan Wigs show. A
That's coming up in a
wonderful
couple
band
weeks.
from Cincinnati. Except for then I realized that, the sum total of the Afghan Wigs show, when you factor in the commute from Canada, is about $1,500.
Yeah,
I don't love
exactly.
the Wigs that much.
They're pretty good, though.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite bands. I really enjoy getting to go to their shows. We are sadly going to miss it this
Oh,
year,
that's too bad.
however, I think, due to a number of colliding events. But I wish them well. They just had a new album drop.
Yeah,
Actually,
I'm
that I have
looking
not
forward
yet
to it.
listened
I
to.
haven't
So
dived into it yet. I've heard a little bit of it. It's pretty cool.
nice,
Mm.
good stuff. Well, if everyone's wondering why the hell Aaron and I are just talking to one another here on the Relish This podcast, is because he is one of the best copywriters in the world, if not the best copywriter in the world.
Thank
And
you.
I wanted to bring him and his great, big, beautiful brain to the masses with a conversation about copywriting, about content marketing, and all of that stuff when it comes to getting the word out for your organization, whether you're a nonprofit or just somebody out trying to do more good in the world. Content marketing seems to be one of the major go-to activities that need to happen if you're hoping to attract and entice an audience to participate in whatever it is that you would like for them to participate in. And Aaron's an expert in this field. And so what are some of the fun things that you've been seeing lately in terms of content marketing and copywriting that you can share with our audience?
Oh, golly. Well, I mean, that's an interesting question for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm starting to sort of crystallize my own ideas about how it should be done, how you should write and what, how to not be sleazy and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it is that I gave up on most social media. So where before I was a keen observer of the usual bullcrap and the trendy types of sales pitches and clickbaity articles and so on and so forth, I'm refreshingly in the dark around the pulse of the current moment. Like I couldn't tell you what I used to be able to tell you what ad was irritating me or what style of crummy clickbaity webinar was out there. Uh, you know, but again, my life is refreshingly free of that nonsense. Now, so what that means is almost a return to the fundamentals. I mean, there's still, since the publication of the first piece of content marketing, approximately, golly, 110 years ago. I mean, essentially a catalog, like the J. Peterman
Right.
catalog of its day. Not a lot has changed about humans. That's the thing that we need to understand. People are always searching for the ultimate edge or the newest technique, but humans don't evolve uh, anywhere near that fast. So, for all intents and purposes, the buyer of 1922 is still essentially the buyer of 2022. They're still motivated by psychological triggers, and they're still curious, and they're still easily distracted, and even more so today, obviously. But the challenge that faces content marketers in 2022 is just the sheer amount of noise out there that the internet kind of democratized publishing. And that's a plus, because it means that any one of us can do it. I can do it, or you can do it, Stu, or any of your listeners can do it. They can get out there and publish content and say, look what I added to the world. But at the same time, we're now competing against hundreds of millions of people, and very likely thousands of people, even in just the same space, saying very similar things.
Right.
So it becomes harder and harder to distinguish yourself, to actually put the thought and the leadership back into thought leadership. A lot of it is simply thought parrotship, or thought copyship, or there's a lot of just empty content and noise. And so, I guess, to make a long answer short, I still feel that the number one advantage when it comes to publishing your content is doing some actual thinking, actually saying something, instead of just trying to say what everybody else is saying, or trying to put your spin on the trendy article of the moment, or the newsjack the Queen's death, and talk about how if the Queen was still alive, here's how she'd be doing content marketing. Like, come on.
Right. So do you think that people need to pause and decide, be a little bit more thoughtful in what they're putting out there, or do they just need to practice more and get more material out there so that they get better at creating great material? Which of those, or is there something else that you think is the trigger that people should be trying to leverage?
I think it's interesting
in this case.
I don't ignore social media enough that I'm not familiar with, what TikTok is, for example. Stick with me on this metaphor. TikTok is like, here's a creator comes along and does this goofy dance, and somebody else copies it, and all of a sudden everybody's doing this goofy dance. Yeah, it's possible for person number 17,000 to become more famous than the person who did the goofy dance in the first place. But that's a rare occurrence, right? And so now apply that analog to content. Somebody says some idea and everybody says, oh, yes, I agree. I defy you to go to LinkedIn and for example, and look at the percentage of stuff that is actually, someone thinking, as opposed to somebody saying, oh, look, here's this article, I believe this, or, oh, blah, 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 blah. So I would say that, separate from, what tactics do you want to do? How often do you want to publish? How long should it be? The first question that anyone should ask is, what are we actually saying? What do we want to say here? What do we stand for? What are we for? What do we believe? What does our company believe? Like, what is the purpose of us? There's a conversation you and I have had more than once, I think, about what Relish does and what Wrixon does. And, I mean, at least for me, I have, I want to be known for copy that is not sleazy, that is really good, reads really well, that helps you sell more stuff without selling your soul, that, like, that doesn't treat sales as a dirty word, but also doesn't treat buyers as mindless, faceless, clicks on the other end of the screen. That, if we could just increase our conversion rate by 0.23%, that means we could leverage another $11,000 this quarter. That's not for me. So, one of the reasons that I myself stay quiet, that I'm not pumping out content, is that I haven't yet figured out how to translate what I stand for into something that feels real to me, that doesn't just feel like I'm parroting somebody else. Now, maybe that's to my detriment. Maybe there's got to be some kind of balance, maybe, between I won't write a word until I know it's the most original content in the world, and
Right.
and the sort of like, oh, well, that guy got success with this type of article, I'm going to just copy that. And, worst of all is these things that spin articles and just say, well, I'm going to rewrite a version of that and just post that because it's Thursday, I need to post a blog, uh, clearly the it's a passionate topic for me, and I've yet to form a succinct answer about how you should start to market. But I really do feel like before you even think about it, you got to figure out the basics. What do you want to say? Why are you saying it? Who are you saying it to? Where are they hiding? How can you find them? Where are you going to say it? And then you start saying, okay, should we be doing this on Instagram? Should we be doing it as blog posts? Should we be doing a combination? There's so many companies that get told, well, content marketing is about writing one white paper every quarter and then dividing that into 8 blog posts and then dividing each of those blog posts into 4 social media posts and then barfing them out and just hitting people over the head with something that they really don't care about.
Yeah.
I feel like good content will out, but maybe that's just me being idealistic.
Well, I think that being idealistic in a space that is in dire need of some idealism, for lack of a better word, is probably not a bad place to start. It sounds like authenticity and intention are kind of the starting points, where really understanding the why behind even publishing in the first place, as well as really trying to be completely authentic in the materials that you're producing, and not just regurgitating a bunch of stuff that's already been said 1,000 times. And that may be where one might start. It just is a challenge when you start thinking about all of the items that you just listed in terms of where are we going to publish, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden there's a paralysis that can occur in terms of all of the planning that has to go into an article. And by that point, the ship may have sailed.
No, it's true. And, like, to be more pragmatic about it instead of just sort of pie in the sky idealistic. If you would, I mean, there are still, you're not doing content marketing just because you are, you want to write the next great American novel. You're doing it with a reason. You want to sell more of your stuff. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways that you can do that and still find your stamp of authenticity. You could, for example, say, okay, what's ranking highly for the search term that I want to target? Let's say you and I want to target, I don't know, purpose-driven marketing, to borrow a Relish phrase. So we go out to the web and find out what's going on with purpose-driven marketing. And that's when the brain comes in, right? You look at what's there and what's ranking and do some extrapolation, and you say, okay, well, funnily enough, the top 4 articles on purpose-driven marketing all seem to be tip lists. So clearly Google thinks that lists of tips are valuable here. So we know, okay, we want to talk about purpose-driven marketing. We're going to find some kind of tip list. Clearly, we need to put the keyword in the title. So it's going to be 6 somethings about purpose-driven marketing. You can further get clues from Google around what kind of content it values by looking at, things like people also search for, and those questions that Google feeds you, people also ask,
Yep.
So between those things, you can start to hone in on what might make a good article on purpose-driven marketing. For me, the extra mile comes when you say, okay, you know what? How am I going to make mine different? What's going to be different here? It can't be that it's simply going to be longer. And so what you do is you take a look at what's there and figure out where the gaps are and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to address those gaps. Or it looks like the number 2 article and the number 3 article are both taking a different tack here. Well, what happens if we combine that same sort of thing into something new and address both of those angles in this article? And then for the last little bit of the extra mile, you say to your reader in your article, hey, reader, we looked at these articles and this is what they're saying about purpose-driven marketing, but where they're wrong is X. We feel that Y. And so you tell them up front that you're different. It's not enough simply to be different, but if you're now guiding the reader to saying, we've done some thinking about this and here's what we believe, then you're all of a sudden standing up for something. You've got it. You are your own mascot. You've got a cause here, and you're saying you're helping to define Relish as a company, even as you're defining what you feel about purpose-driven marketing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's like you're creating your own differentiation within the content that you're creating.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're making it fairly overt in terms of not making people have to dig around for that. You're explicitly saying other people feel this way. This is our take on it that differs, and here we go.
Yeah, like if you can like front load that stuff. If you were to say, for example, in our experience, most articles on purpose-driven marketing only scratch the surface. They're full of bromides and dime a dozen tips, and just the same marketing stuff you see all the time, just with a purpose, just viewed through purpose-colored glasses. In this article, we wanted to go deeper and actually help you align the values of your nonprofit with your marketing in a very concrete way. And we've got 6 tips that you can use to do that, and then you can fill in your email address and download a worksheet, and then all of a sudden you've got a content marketing engine going, because people are reading in the first paragraph, oh wait, and this is not going to be surface stuff. This is going to be something different. This is going to be finally something refreshing. So they get sucked into the page, and then all of a sudden when they see your call to action that says download this worksheet to help you, bingo, you've got a new email for your mailing list.
Right. Right.
And all of that done very organically and very refreshingly, I think. It's not simply cranking out content because you're supposed to. It's done very intentionally and with a purpose and a strategy. And for me, I think that's what content marketing should be about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sounds like a pretty sound way to start to develop those relationships. And, that's one of the things we talk pretty regularly about with our clients over here at Relish, is the idea that marketing is just relationship building. And whether you're selling some sort of very inexpensive widget, or selling a very expensive service, or trying to get people to engage with your mission as a nonprofit, you have to build that relationship. And so many people, and we see this constantly on on social media, in email marketing, et cetera. They just leap right to the sale, without dating it at all. And it's really frustrating to see
It's
that
true.
that's still occurring.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we just met. Will you marry me? And that's rarely how that whole process works for people. And as you mentioned before, people really aren't any different than they were hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
It's
terms
true.
of I guess you could argue that hundreds of years ago people actually did sort of do that hi, let's get married thing, but
Perhaps.
yeah,
Perhaps.
but
Well, I mean,
it was
it's like,
probably,
look at,
yeah,
if I've got wheat and you've got wheat, then great, we both have wheat. But if I have wheat and you have leather, then you and I could figure out some way to trade. And it's in our advantage because I want leather to put on my horse, use as a saddle, and you want wheat so you can eat. And that's a mutually beneficial transaction. And I think what people forget about content is that it really does need to be mutually beneficial. People get so fixated on building lists or grabbing eyeballs, they forget to think about, well, why would this person on the other end care?
right.
And, they're certainly not going to care because you have written something. They're going to care because you've written something that will help them greatly, and that you're demonstrating to them early is worth the investment of effort to see if it will help them. It's not just about, I wrote this super helpful article. You have to show them and tell them that it's a super helpful article as well,
Yeah, it's funny how we all need to continually be led to that to that water, I guess.
Well, it's like it's in some ways it's the same way that I don't know, my wife, for example, can have a perfectly great conversation with me. When she sits down to write, she feels she has to put her professor hat on and try to write with 4-syllable words and so on and so forth. When we think that we're marketing, we get this weird sense of it has to be this way and we've got to be that way. And really all it is saying, look, I have something you might be interested in. Here's why you should check it out. Let me know if you're interested. That's really all it is.
Right. Right.
It's all the content marketing is. It's all that sales is. I was talking to a guy yesterday. I said, you're really good at sales. He says, oh God, I hate that word. Couldn't we just say that I'm really good at like following up with people that I care about to see how they're doing and just to remind them that if they're interested, they could buy my stuff. I'm like, dude, that is sales, or at least it's supposed to be. We've gotten so far away from it that sales is the slick Rick guy at the used car lot, and marketing is full of fishing rod metaphors, and she uses words like targets and conversions and all this stuff to obfuscate from the fact it's just a human making a choice to read your thing and saying, oh, actually, that might help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how people don't, people just really want their problem solved.
Yeah.
And they don't really care how you do it. And then, back to the relationship piece, it really is just if there's one KPI that I recommend people start tracking, it's how many conversations have you had in the last week, month, however, whatever duration of time you're wanting to track against.
Yeah.
And if you can just make sure that you're reaching out to enough people to fill that calendar, to fill your calendar, it doesn't have to be full. You don't have to have conversations 8 hours a day necessarily, but that you're filling your calendar with enough conversations that turn into opportunities. And it's funny how, and as a marketer, we're always talking about what's the sales funnel we need to build out, and how many times do we need to be posting a week on X, Y, and Z, and all of these activities that certainly can lead to those conversations. But ultimately, it comes down to just asking for the for the conversation. Do you have 15 minutes to chat about X?
Yeah.
And if you're a nonprofit, particularly an ED or someone out there who's in charge of increasing donations, that's a great place to start, is to just start making sure that some portion of your day is spent asking for conversations and another portion of your day is spent having those conversations.
It's funny you mentioned that.
That's a far cry from copywriting, but
Well, no, it is, because you said people wanted to get their problems solved. And I think one of the mistakes that nonprofits that I see constantly make is they think that people's problem is that they don't know enough about their nonprofit. Stu just doesn't know enough about Wrixon.org. No, they think that Stu's problem is that he has extra money that he wants to donate. But I mean, the realistically, the quote unquote problem is, in a lot of times, I want to feel good. And if you can find a way to help donors get that feeling by helping your mission or by donating money or by volunteering, that can go a long way. If you treat the problem as, I would like to feel good by helping you, then all of a sudden there's a shift in your marketing, right? You move from donation appeals to telling stories about how donors helped out this person or whatever. It's kind of a half-formed thought, but it's on my mind. We found this person in the street last night, like this girl, like 22-year-old kid, like so drunk she was lying on the road, and we basically helped her up and very ponderously tried to figure out, what the heck she was doing there, what she was on, what was going on. And we eventually found out that she lived only about a mile away. I don't know how she got to my neighborhood, but we walked her home and had her roommates come out and meet her. And damned if we didn't worry all night about her until her mother texted my wife this morning and said, "Thank you so much for what you did last night. She's fine, blah, 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 blah." That felt really good. And that's, I think, why people support nonprofits. At their core, it's a way to feel good. It's a way to feel like you are helping something or someone in a world that's increasingly out of control or increasingly fractious, or, And so if you think about how can we, at its core, one of the emotional needs that our donors have is that feel good button. How do we push that button? How can we show them that we helped? How can we, then all of a sudden you shift the conversation from, let's figure out ways to blast our mission and message at people. And you transform it to, let's figure out ways that we can connect people with opportunities to use their resources to help others and feel good in doing so.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that ties into Donald Miller's story brand approach to things, where you're talking about the hero's journey and how most businesses, most nonprofits, and I think it's a particular challenge in the nonprofit space, tend to position themselves as the hero in the story. If you go to any, really just pick a site and go to it, and you'll be able to see this in action, where either the nonprofit or the business in question is spending 98% of the time talking about themselves. And essentially, when one does that, one positions that entity as the hero in the story. And if you are trying to appeal to people love being the heroes. I'm the hero of my story. You're the hero of your story. And when we aren't positioned in that, or when an entity is able to position us in their story as that role, things tend to take off. And it's a real challenge with nonprofits, because there's this selflessness that comes within the nonprofit world, and nonprofits are by nature doing heroic
Mm-hmm.
things. And so it's a little challenging to pivot that story to make your donor the hero. But I think that, as you described very well, if you can do that, if you can position this in terms of, you're going to be helping these people thrive, you're going to be helping these animals, get through a hard time, you're going to be helping, these kids get education, as opposed to we, the nonprofit, are doing that for you or in your stead. I think that that's where some of the copywriting magic can happen in this particular space, for example.
I agree. I mean, I have a friend and client who helped redesign the most successful uh, donation campaign in the history of the University of Toronto. This thing was like ridiculously successful, and their one of their big challenges was how do we reinvent this? How do we relaunch this campaign for another 10 years? I think that the original campaign had done $4 billion over 10 years, for things like, oh, here's a medical center, here's whatever. I mean, so we're talking like large donations, the typical kinds of donations you'd see at a university or a college, right? But the idea that they came up with was they moved from, and you can see this at the current University of Toronto donation campaign. I'll give you the link and you can put it in the notes. They moved from a focus on donations to a focus on what those donations enable. So they organized everything by, 6 or 7 different campaign priorities, like build inclusive cities or enable healthy lives or create a sustainable future. And so when you're, linking through, you can then browse particular initiatives under that bucket. For example, as we're recording this, I'm clicking through their website. I've gone to create a sustainable future. Now I'm clicking through to create high impact clean energy solutions. And here we've got a page talking about U of T's climate positive energy initiative. Talks about what they're doing, why it's important, and it's full of give now buttons. Support the climate positive energy research initiative. You're much more likely to do that if you're interested in being environmentally friendly with your money than you are simply saying, yes, I'd like to donate $5,000. Please give it to some sort of, environmental thing. There's also, you may also be interested in supporting a new sustainable building at U of T, supporting healthy and sustainable cities, and so on and so forth. It's all organized around, how can we help people feel good about the money they're donating? Not simply from well, golly, I did a good thing today. We made a donation out of Uncle Fester's inheritance, but we actually directed our money toward the climate positive energy initiative, and now we'll be helping people prevent the catastrophic impacts of climate change. It's a really cool concept, and one that I think your nonprofit listeners could learn a lot from.
Yeah, and it seems like it's not guilt driven. There's some nonprofits out there, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but that tend to do something similar, but they attach, such a small figure to how you can help, for 29 cents a day.
Yeah, just $1.70. I mean, you think about those ads that you and I used to see in the 80s, the famine ads,
Yep. Yeah.
Or the one with the Sarah McLachlan song and the dog sitting out.
The sad dogs. But I do remember Rach is my wife. We have supported Save the Children for gosh, I don't even know how many years, 30 years or something. And there was one year in particular, I remember that they had this kind of a catalog type thing that gave a bunch of information about where certain levels of support could go. And one of them I remember very distinctly was build a well. And I know that
Mm.
water and water scarcity is becoming a bigger and bigger challenge for people in more arid climates
Mm-hmm.
around the world, probably actually anywhere really. But they attached a dollar figure to building a well, and then gave some other information about how that helps, sustain the community and leads to kids being in school more hours a day because they're not
Yeah.
walking
Yeah.
7 miles to get water, et cetera. And so it was a really neat way to attach a dollar figure to an outcome, in a non guilty sort of feeling way. Is that similar to what you're seeing there at U of T?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the kind of stuff that I like to do in the work that I'm doing these days, right? Like I came up doing content marketing. I still do a fair bit of it for the right clients. More and more these days, I'm focused on copy, on in a nonprofit context. For example, like rewriting your donation page or your homepage, or helping you craft that
Mm-hmm.
donation letter. And that's exactly that story that you just told about build a well. That's exactly the kind of stuff that I try to do. How do we ground this in the specific? How do we, knowing what we know about our ideal donor, how do we write the perfect words that helps them connect the idea of, oh yeah, I can make a real difference here. That's the kind of stuff that U of
Right.
T is doing, and the kind of things that I like to do with both nonprofit and for-profit clients.
Yeah, it's I think everything is a work in progress and an experiment, and you need to make sure that you're measuring um, the effect, positive or negative, and then make adjustments and measure that as well. And so, that tends to be another area of challenge for a lot of nonprofits is the accountability piece in terms of what did this actually result in. And so, it sounds to me like you're doing that kind of work where you're constantly testing new messaging and ways of presenting that information,
Yeah, I try.
to see what's working best.
I mean, when you move out of the sleaze world, you also tend to leave behind the people that are relentlessly obsessed with measuring because they're always looking for an edge. So it's harder
Hmm.
to help Main Street America. It's harder to help the mom and pop shop with 8 employees get really, really, really into the concept of A/B testing a headline to see which one makes a bigger impact on their money. But
Right.
the more progressive, I think, among your nonprofit listeners are doing exactly that. Let's write a version A of this donation letter and a version B of this donation letter, and mail each of them out to 1,000 people and see which one brings in more money, and then let's use that as the control, and then let's move on and test. We'll innovate the second paragraph, and so on and so forth. It's an interesting
Right.
process that I think can lead to a lot of um, optimization has come to have a bad connotation, but really what you're trying to do is optimize for the maximum ROI on your marketing investment. If you could spend $1,000 on marketing and get 23% more donations than you did last campaign, well, why wouldn't you do that, right?
Right. Right. Well, I think it comes down to your intention, and it's not that you necessarily just want to sell more things or bring in more money. You want to help more people, or whatever your mission is. You want to help those entities lead a better life, or
For
feel
sure.
better,
It's
or
it's
whatever
much
it is.
more
Right.
it's much easier to do uh, when you believe in the product, and when you believe, or believe in the cause, or believe that you've got an ethical product that you're marketing ethically.
Right.
So that's another reason why I left that world. I just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't sell any more anti-aging cream.
Right.
Just get old, damn it.
It's working for me.
Yeah, me too.
Um, so you mentioned earlier about building your email list. What's your feeling about email these days is, you could hear, you could go online and search for email marketing and get 1,000 different hits on why it's dead or why it's thriving. What's your take on leveraging one's email to for outreach?
Well, I personally believe that until somebody comes up with something that is as intimate and as reliable as an email delivered into your inbox, that it's just not going to die. It certainly won't be replaced by something broadcasty like social media. There would have to be an evolution in email technology, I think, for what we know as email today to be replaced. There's just nothing like it. You have access. Excuse me. You have access to person's inbox. You've got a reasonable assurance that it's going to get there. You can innovate on subject headlines to try to get more people to open the thing. You can innovate on calls to action to try to get more people to click on what you're putting in there. But even, for example, let's say you, quote unquote, only get 25% of people to open up your email. That's still 10 to 15 times higher than the percentage you'll see on social media. Facebook, for example, might deliver it might show your post to 120 people in the 1,000 of your group. Maybe, if you're lucky.
Right.
They might show it to 80 in the 1,000 that are in your group, as opposed to, let's say you email to a nice warm list of 1,000, you might get 350 people opening it. You might only get 110 people opening it, but the odds are that you can do more to get people to open up that email. So there's this crazy statistic, that's floating around. But it gets proven every couple of years. The ROI on email floats around in the 30s and 40x's, 38 times, 44 times. I don't know what it is these days in 2022, but it's really high. And so on average, if you're doing things right, for every $1,000 you're spending on email, it's leading to $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 if you've got the machine working nicely, So I feel there's nothing like email, and there won't be until email itself gets upgraded.
Right. Well, you mentioned intimacy, and I think that that's a big component of email, is that people tend to think that they need to over design their emails. And so they are very clearly coming not from a person. And that's one of the quickest ways. Well, the first way is in your subject line. And if your subject line looks like it has been sent in bulk, it's very likely that will not get opened. And so really making sure that you can optimize your subject line to appear as if it was a one-to-one type conversation.
Yeah.
And then once you get those opened, the quickest way to make someone absolutely know that they aren't special is to make that email look like it was overly designed. And, it's clearly not a personal request or conversation starter or anything like that. It's just, it's, if you can strip all that stuff out, which is remarkably easy to not over design an email. You, especially in the nonprofit space, the more that one can make these feel in both tone and design as if they were coming from a single person to another single person, the better off you're going to be in the performance of that, as well as improving your future open rates.
For sure. And on the copy too, right? Like, people make a couple of mistakes. One of them being we-itis, I call it. Let's talk about us. When you should be saying you whenever you can. But another one of these, a very simple thing to do we often drop into "Hey everyone" or "Hello all," or this sort
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
talking to all of our donor base all at once, when in fact you're going to see much better results by letting them know you're talking to them, to that single person.
Yeah.
And along the lines that you just said, if you can write an email from Stu Sutcliffe, the bassist from the Beatles.
Right.
My brain said Sutcliffe, not Swineford. So if you can write a letter from Stu Swineford, I clearly have the Beatles on the brain. I'm listening to deluxe album after deluxe album. Stu
Nice.
Sutcliffe, for benefit of your readers, was the guy that was left behind, the fifth Beatle that never was. In any case, if you can send your email from Stu Swineford, director of whatever, as opposed to from swineford.org, and we at blah blah
Yep.
blah, you're also going to end up personalizing that email and increasing that intimate connection that you've got with that reader. And that's so much harder to do on social media. There's no getting around the fact that you are one of millions who are seeing the post about the urgency of famine relief or flood relief in Pakistan or whatever. Like, it's a much different thing when you put that into somebody's inbox and say, listen, we need your help. I'm talking to you, and we
Right.
need your help right now. Can you give us this money to help this?
Right. Yeah, personalization is key as well. I think one of the studies that I read was if you just weave, if you have a bulk email system like
Yeah.
MailChimp, your CRM, Constant Contact, whatever one is using, definitely try to personalize the subject lines. So, how's it going, comma, Aaron,
Yeah.
gets opened a lot more than how's it going. Just by nature of using somebody's name in the subject line, you're going to see your open rates improve.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because you talked about future deliverability. Like, that's going to work the first time. I know a guy that sends out an email that says, I'm on Zoom. And it's like, here's the link for our meeting. Like that works once,
Yep.
until you realize you're being tricked into clicking onto a webinar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the idea that
Yeah.
you can programmatically personalize an email, it might catch somebody once, but then if you let them down by doing the opposite of what we just talked about, if you're talking to your
Yeah.
donor base, if you're saying we too much, if so it all works in tandem. If you can say
Yeah.
an urgent appeal, Stu, and then it you can open it up and you've got the software to say, listen, we know that in Colorado you might not think about what's happening around the world, but people in Pakistan desperately need your help, and blah blah blah. Like, if you can work these ways into an email, that's cool to do it with your software, but what's required at the base is that understanding that says we are going to be speaking to one person and one person alone, and that's the person that's reading this email.
Yeah.
We're going to get somebody to actually read these things to make sure we don't ever slip from the idea that there's one person at swineford.org that's talking to one reader, and that's the way we write our emails from now on.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just go back to doing it manually.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we'll just
and actually do that.
we can write
That actually might be the
17,000
way
all
to
at
do
once,
it.
right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that might be the way to start is if you're having trouble with that, is to just go and write, 30 personalized emails and see how that feels. And then take that and apply it to your next bulk email,
Mm-hmm.
and just start from that perspective, or that, put yourself in that seat that this is going to a single person, and I'm going to make it feel like that 100%.
Yeah, no, it's one of this. It's hard to do. It's hard to make that shift, but at the same time, it's one of the easiest ways to improve your emails, your opens and your clicks, and the general goodwill of the people on the other end who are reading them in their inbox.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, Aaron, I can't believe it's been an hour. Time always flies when I get to talk with you.
Yeah.
I have a couple
Sure.
questions for
Yeah.
you. The first one is, I know you do a crazy movie deep dive every holiday break, which is coming up.
Oh, I forgot about
I
that piece. When I quit
I
Facebook, I
can't
forgot.
remember. I can't remember who it was. It Nic Cage last year, or was it?
Last year
No,
I
it was
did.
Russell Crowe.
Last year I did Russell Crowe. Yeah, it just about killed me. I was pretty tired of Russell Crowe by the time I was done. What I like to do is I like to try to do. You know how they have the 12 days of Christmas. I try to watch a movie
Yeah.
every one of those 12 days. And I've done the
Okay.
12 days of Cage-mas, the 12 days of Cruise-mas. Last year was clearly Crow's-mas. So gosh, I don't know what to do. I used to publish them on Facebook, and now that I'm off the platform, I don't know where I'll put them, but maybe I'll find a way. Maybe I'll just
Well,
email people.
yeah, true. You don't have to publish it. You could just do it for you as
Yeah,
well.
no.
I was just curious if you had one picked out for
Well,
this year.
listen, I've long wanted to do God Rest Ye Denzel Washington. So that might be there. Sandra Bullock appeals. The key, the thing is, you have to find somebody that can act but regularly chooses not to. You know, you, you, you get like with a Nic Cage, the man is a good actor, in brackets, when he wants to be, and much of the time he is not. So I find that very fascinating about. I mean, not that I would ever submit myself to 12 Adam Sandler movies, but the man can act. If you've ever seen Uncut Gems
Yep,
or Punch Drunk
absolutely.
Love, or he
Yeah.
can act. So why does he do this? Like,
What was the Mauschwitz stories?
Meyerowitz stories.
Meyerowitz stories? Meyerowitz
New,
stories, yeah. He was great in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he has, I would say Ben Stiller would be on that list as well.
Yeah, my family favorite, Secret Life of Walter Mitty. The kids love that movie.
Yeah.
And so he can do it. He just, spends a lot of his time doing Meet the Fockers or whatever, right? Like, why? So that essential question is there. Like, why do you do this? And so you take somebody like Russell Crowe, who has chops, and then at the same time will sign up to play Noah, and with these like crazy rock monsters. I don't even know what they were doing in the movie. Anybody involved with Noah should be embarrassing themselves. Darren Aronofsky first. But I digress. You shouldn't have started me on movies. No, just ran for another hour. You said you had two questions. What was the other one?
Well, the other one is how I normally wrap up each show. And so the first question, so I guess I have a couple more than
I can handle
questions.
it.
How can people find out about you if they'd like to talk with you more about copywriting, or have you help them craft the perfect one-to-one email?
Well,
how can they reach out?
They can find me at Wrixon.com. That's WRIXON.com. Easy. Easy 6-letter domain. WRIXON. I always tell people that Wrixon is the last word you'll ever have to know how to spell. Wrixon, because I'll take care of the rest
Wrixon.
of them.
Nice. And the second question is, I like having conversations, and I like discussions. However, I really would like to inspire people to take action. And so if there was any action that you'd like somebody to take after listening to the show today, what would that be?
Give your head a shake. No, I think authenticity. Try to be more authentic. Try to be more bold in your communications, more real, more authentic, more vulnerable, more engaging. This is an acronym that I once developed called Braver. It's been so long since I've thought about it that I have forgotten the second R, but just get braver in what you do. Be brave about daring to commit to authentic conversation, to real thought leadership, to non-sleazy copywriting. That's easier for the nonprofit world than for the profit world, because
Sure.
nonprofits are often so mission driven that they would never dream of writing sleazy stuff. But the other danger is writing boring stuff. There's a space for you that's not huckstery, but is also not simply boring and wallpaper. And I challenge you, listener, with an R, not with an S, because I'm talking to just the one of you. I challenge you to be more authentic in your relations with your donors.
I second that and would encourage everyone to just start writing as well, and in that vein. So go out there and write some braver copy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on the show,
Thanks,
Aaron. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Indeed, my friend.
And I hope you have a great rest of your day up there in Canada.
Thank you. The rest of my day is going to last for way too long, but I will have a great one because you asked me to.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
Man.
Bye. And there you have it, another great episode of Relish This. Thanks again for listening. You can find past episodes of the show at relishthis.org. And remember, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information on purpose marketing, grab your free copy of my book, Mission Uncomfortable: How Nonprofits Can Embrace Purpose-Driven Marketing to Survive and Thrive. Get your copy now at missionuncomfortablebook.com. Thanks again for listening. Come back next week, won't you?